Harper found herself standing in the kitchen, lost in thought as she meticulously cleaned the kettle. Her mind drifted, contemplating when this seemingly endless ordeal would finally conclude and how she could extricate herself from this situation. The once burgeoning optimism that had characterized the early days of her marriage had dwindled into a profound sense of disillusionment. In the beginning, Ethan had pursued her with a fervent and enchanting romance. He'd serenaded her beneath her window, showered her with a variety of flowers until he discerned her preference for orchids. From that point forward, orchids became his emblematic gift, and Harper had assumed this enchanting gesture would endure indefinitely, perhaps without the constant presence of orchids but certainly with Ethan by her side. Before long, Ethan had asked Harper to be his life partner, to which she had eagerly consented. Their wedding day had radiated with her happiness, punctuated by Ethan's whispered vows of eternal devotion. They had settled into Ethan's apartment, a gift from his parents several years prior. Conveniently, it was situated right next to the office where Harper and her college friend Sharon had toiled as designers for 3 years. However, Sharon's life soon took a different path as she married and relocated to a neighboring town with her spouse. Despite Harper's affinity for the apartment, one aspect did nag at her: the presence of a second room filled to the brim with musical instruments. Ethan, her husband, was a musician and a band leader, but their musical pursuits had yet to yield any significant financial rewards. Ethan's earnings from sources outside of music were consistently funneled into rehearsals and the logistics of transporting equipment. Initially, Harper paid little attention to the domestic challenges this posed. As she juggled her career, financial responsibilities, and later, motherhood, Harper gradually realized how much she yearned for Ethan's presence and support. Ethan's constant absence due to rehearsals, band-related matters, and his habitual late-night returns, often inebriated, left Harper longing for a simple dinner together and the opportunity to converse. She resisted voicing her frustration, determined not to come across as a demanding or disgruntled wife. However, her desire for some respite became unmistakable one day after the arrival of their son, Spencer. Harper had asked Ethan to take their child for a walk, hoping to catch at least a brief half-hour of rest. To her astonishment, her husband responded with a quizzical look and retorted, "These responsibilities are yours, Harper. I can't be bothered with all this nonsense. Do you want me to become a renowned musician or not?" It was at that moment Harper grasped the stark reality that nothing was likely to change, and this realization had little to do with the absence of orchids in her life. Ethan had transformed significantly, seemingly indifferent to both her and Spencer's needs. Harper had resolved to initiate a final conversation with her husband, but before she could, a calamity struck: her mother succumbed to illness. Grief-stricken by the loss, Harper fell into a deep stupor of depression. Remarkably, Ethan began to present her with orchids once more, and Harper even interpreted this as an attempt on his part to offer solace and support during her darkest hours. However, Ethan's intentions took an unexpected turn. He broached the subject of selling Harper's late mother's apartment, proposing that they use the proceeds to purchase a van for rehearsals and tours. Harper couldn't help but suppress a bemused chuckle, as her husband's musical endeavors had never ventured beyond local clubs. Nevertheless, she refrained from dissent and acquiesced to the plan, resulting in the acquisition of the van and the deposit of the remaining funds in the bank. Predictably, their routine remained largely unaltered. As Spencer began teething, Harper endured sleepless nights filled with the plaintive cries of her baby. Ethan's absence during these trying nights was a recurring pattern. His band's performances continued to be financially unrewarding, leaving them heavily reliant on child support. Then, one day, the phone rang, and Harper's spirits soared upon hearing her friend's cheerful voice. Sharon shared the exciting news that she and her husband were planning an overseas vacation and tearfully implored Harper to stay at their home and care for Rocky, their spaniel. Harper felt a surge of relief, for she had yearned for a change of scenery, even if only for a brief respite. She confided her concerns to Sharon, who responded with unwavering determination, saying, "That settles it. It's settled. Come to our place with Spencer. I'll be back from my vacation soon, and we'll work things out. You may not need to return to your husband. Stay here, find a job, and you can live with us for as long as necessary. Our house is spacious, Sharon affirmed, her tone resolute. Harper made a firm decision. She swiftly packed essentials into a suitcase, along with Spencer's clothing and her important documents, including her driver's license. Leaving behind a note for Ethan, explaining her departure and her intention to file for divorce, Harper proceeded to place the baby seat in her car. As she did so, she realized that the evening had grown dark and chill. Driving to a gas station located on the outskirts of town, she filled the car's tank. However, a mere few dozen miles away from her destination, the vehicle unexpectedly broke down. Recognizing the impossibility of reaching the nearest town on foot, Harper attempted to make a phone call, but unfortunate circumstances dictated that there was no signal in the area. She resorted to signaling passing cars, honking her horn and flashing her lights in desperation. Regrettably, not a single vehicle stopped. 2 hours passed, and the late hour had transformed the once busy highway into an eerie and deserted stretch of road. Suddenly, the distant glow of headlights pierced the darkness. Harper, consumed by desperation, dashed onto the road, frantically waving her arms. A jeep drew to a halt, and a man emerged from the vehicle. Attempting to ascertain the situation, he found Harper shivering and fatigued, her words a jumbled mess of confusion. The man could only piece together that they were both headed to the same town. Her car had inexplicably broken down, and her baby was exposed to the biting cold. "All right, let's do this," he said reassuringly. "Gather your belongings and the baby, along with his car seat, and come over to my car. Don't worry, we're headed in the same direction. I'll get you where you need to go, and tomorrow you can arrange for a tow truck to take your car to the repair shop." Harper readily agreed, her fear of freezing in the car with the baby overwhelming her. Seated inside the man's vehicle, he introduced himself as Alexander. He explained that he was en route to visit his parents, who resided in the same town as her friend. His father had recently established a new branch in that city, while Alexander was responsible for overseeing the existing one. He chuckled good-naturedly and remarked that his parents would likely be the finest people on earth if they didn't continually pester him about getting married quickly. "Better not rush into it," Harper blurted out impulsively. Alexander appeared taken aback and inquired cautiously, "I'm sorry, but are you speaking from personal experience?" In that moment, Harper felt an unusual sense of openness with this stranger, unburdening herself by recounting her life's trials. She shared how her dreams of familial bliss had collided with the harshness of reality, leading her to flee her husband in her hometown, a journey that had commenced with a profound love. "Harper, can you help me?" Alexander asked suddenly. "You've come to our rescue today, and I owe you a debt. Tell me how I can assist you, and I'll do my best." In response, Alexander confided in Harper that he had once been in a relationship with a woman who had left him for a wealthier businessman from Greece. Subsequently, his parents had intervened, attempting to introduce him to a woman employed within his father's company. Although she possessed qualities they deemed desirable, Alexander had adamantly refused their arrangement. As a result, they continually pressured him to marry. Alexander then unveiled what he believed to be a clever solution to temporarily pacify his parents. He suggested that Harper visit his parents and assume the role of his fiancée, at least for the time being, to dissuade them from further matchmaking efforts. Harper was on the verge of laughter but swiftly remembered the favor Alexander had done for her. Suppressing her amusement, she offered a warm smile and agreed. "Sure thing, Alexander, but let's plan for tomorrow. My friend is leaving on vacation, and I'll have no one to look after my baby. Plus, I'm not so sure your parents would be thrilled with a bride who already has a child from a previous relationship." Alexander responded confidently, "I'm certain my parents wouldn't mind if the bride had a child, but either way, thank you for agreeing." He then extended an invitation to join them for dinner the following evening. When Alexander arrived to pick up Harper the next night, she was ready. He gazed at her with admiration and assured her that her appearance and personality were strikingly reminiscent of his parents. Harper chuckled and promised to keep a low profile to avoid giving herself away. As Alexander introduced Harper to his parents, he was astounded by their warm and enthusiastic welcome. It turned out that Harper was the very same woman who worked in his father's company, a fact his parents knew well, and they had previously considered her as a potential bride for their son. Upon her return home, Sharon eagerly probed Harper for every detail, and when she discovered that Alexander was the son of their shared boss, her friend's imagination soared. She outlined a hopeful future scenario to Harper, urging her not to conceal her emotions. "I can see that you have feelings for Alexander, and in the short time he's been around, you've picked up on his affection for you," Sharon remarked. "It's time to leave the past behind and stop punishing yourself for misjudging Ethan. You're staying with us, getting a divorce, and joining my boss's company, which might soon become your father-in-law's business. We'll enroll Spencer in a local kindergarten, and everything will work out. We're all turning in early tonight, we have an early flight tomorrow. But I'll stay in touch to keep tabs on how your relationship unfolds," Sharon added with a conspiratorial wink. True to Sharon's predictions, events unfolded rapidly, closely mirroring her foresight. Alexander visited Harper daily, and one fateful day, he confessed his feelings to her. Harper reciprocated, and Alexander wasted no time in ushering her and her son into his car, taking them to meet his parents. Harper's anxiety began to dissipate when Alexander's mother approached them, and she couldn't help but feel a wave of relief. "Hello there, little one. I'm your new grandmother," she greeted Spencer warmly, extending her arms to embrace the child. Harper found it hard to believe that this was her reality. Such moments, she had thought, only occurred in movies. Yet, this was not fiction, it was her new, blissful life, one that had no room for Ethan. In a surprising twist of fate, Harper stumbled upon a news report a year later, but it wasn't about her ex-husband as the famous musician he had aspired to be. Instead, it detailed an incident involving a drunken troublemaker who had disrupted a concert by a renowned band. It seemed that Ethan had found a form of notoriety, albeit through his own questionable choices.